participation in the professional development activities related to collaboration in the classroom. The classroom can be online and face-to-face, and it tells you what you, as I said, you have experience with and knowledge of tools to create collaborative classroom. They may include or but not be limited to these things. So then this is the list of things we're going through today. So this will kind of what this kind of says is that if you go somewhere and you want to do a workshop or you go to another school or something like that, you can say this is the bad, and says I have done this, and so it's kind of a way for you to show off what you know, or at least have been exposed to at the very least. I'm not expecting you all to learn everything really well today. This is just something you have an idea of this course. So I'm now going to hand it over to Meg, who's going to talk about WyoCourses groups.
Okay. How many of you have used groups? Groups. Lots of you. Cool. Before I start talking about groups specifically, I want to step back just to a couple of things. I hope that most of you are members of the Bootcamp 2015 Technology Group with 2015 Technology Bootcamp WyoCourses group. Are any of you not in the group? Linda, you're not?
Well,
no, you were just in.
Under people.
Wyo group.
Wyo group.
Wyo group. So you're in the big shell.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes. You're in. We just
I don't know where.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who's not actually in this course? Everybody who's here. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Great. Okay. One of the things that we are doing in concert with these sessions is we're posting materials for you that will complement the various subjects that we're talking about. So if you click on modules, and if you were here in June, you've already seen this, but I'm just going to quickly show it again just in case. If you click on modules, you'll see a module for each session this summer. So far, we are on the second out of. Jeffrey, you had a question?
Yeah, you probably have to, jump into the Hangout or whatever, so share. I did create a new one.
Oh, right, to the Hangout. Okay. Okay.
We got your tonsils, Mary.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So this is our second session. The first session was in June. Get flipped. The second session today is the collaborative classroom session, and we posted a few materials for you here. Specifically, I want to talk about these two links for groups. The first one, unfortunately, when you click this link, there's a couple of steps. You're going to see this blank screen. I need to chat with Canvas and find out why this content isn't loading yet. But in the interim, you can always get to the content by clicking on the link here. So this is just a list of help documents for groups. These are Canvas or instructor help documents that are actually specific to WyoCourses. Lots of really good material here if you need a refresher after we talk about groups today. And the other thing that I wanted to point out to you is a video tutorial. Again, you have to go through the same process. It's a video tutorial by an instructor about groups specifically. So sometimes the group process, if you haven't worked with groups in WyoCourses before, can be a little bit confusing at first. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty forward and it's really a beautiful, elegant system. But it can be a little bit confusing at first. When I first started talking about groups, it's been almost 2 years now. in WyoCourses. I always compare the group functionality in WyoCourses to the group functionality in eCollege, because they are so very different. And to me, that's beginning to feel like ancient history. But I think it might still be kind of useful to think about the differences, because in WyoCourses, or excuse me, in eCollege, when we created groups, we created groups within a very specific assignment or activity. And that was the only place that a grouping existed, right? Was within a very specific activity or assignment. In WyoCourses, when we create groups, we're creating a whole new classroom for our students, in essence. So in a way, Chrissy came up with this beautiful analogy a long time ago. In a way, the difference between sitting in a classroom, you've got everybody in the classroom, and you put them in groups in the classroom, right? And in the classroom, they all have access to just the one tool, set of tools that might be available to them in the classroom. So for example, everybody in the classroom still has access to the whiteboard, that one whiteboard, even though they're working in separate groups. In contrast, in WyoCourses, we're sending them to different classrooms. And each group has access to its own suite of tools. The other big difference about WyoCourses groups, and the thing that is sometimes confusing for faculty when they start working with them, is that we don't control those groups except to create them. Once our students have been put into groups, they control that classroom. They get to decide which tools to use out of the suite that's available to them and how to use those tools. They get to decide, in essence, what to put up on the walls in the classroom. Okay? So, questions about that sort of conceptual overview before we actually jump into groups? I'll let Christy toss the machine comment.
Now, Maggie, the teacher can access those groups,
Teacher
but
can always
doesn't have control.
access
Okay.
the groups. You can access the groups, you can participate, so you can contribute to the groups, you get announcements or messages about what's happening in these groups depending upon your notification settings. So absolutely, you can always join, you can always walk into the group. Yes, but you can't change the furniture. Basically. One of the most important aspects of technology workshops is the demonstration of how technology is developed. And we're good at that. We do that well. So just to kind of piggyback on what I just said, so I think it's such a collaboration, which can be limited to subsets of students. And groups are going to give your students access to the same functionality and a lot more tools.
All right. Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, so the first thing we need to do if we want to work with groups in WyoCourses is to create a group set that's actually going to house the groups that I create. So the group set is going to be perpetual throughout the course, throughout the semester, or throughout the term of the course. I can create a group set and associate various assignments with that group set so that groupings will stay consistent. So Tao does that, right? And she puts students in literacy groups at the beginning of the semester, and they work together throughout the semester, and they may have multiple collaborative assignments that are associated with that group set. Students work in the same groups throughout the semester. You can also, if we want, we could also create multiple different group sets. So I might want to have one configuration of students for one assignment and another configuration of students for a later assignment. So I have that kind of flexibility. All right, I'm going to put that away. So the first thing I'm going to do, as I said, is I'm going to go to People. And then I'm going to click on Project Groups. Now, notice here that by default you have, I think, a Project Groups tab, and there's not going to be there won't be any groups in that Project Groups tab yet. I can create as many of these group sets as I want. These are just containers, again, that will hold the various configurations of students. In this project group set, we've already created 5 project groups. The project groups have already been populated by people in the course. And I may be, at this point, because I have several people who aren't in groups, I will create another group. So I'm going to say add a group, and I'm going to call it, what do they call project group 6? Oops. And I'm going to add some people to this group. Manuela's not here, but Tao is here. And you're not, here we go. I'm going to add Tao to project group 6. And all I need to do is just grab a hold of her name and drag her into the group. Mary, I'm going to put you in there too. And we'll see now that we have, whoops, a new group with 2 people in it. Most of you are in groups, hopefully. Okay. So in order to start this process from the very beginning, I can create a new group set. I'll call it July. What's today? 8. Oh. Okay. I've gone to People. I'm creating a new group set. I'm going to start all over again, and I'm going to create those groups the way I want them to be. Okay. Notice I have a couple of different options here. One is that I can allow students to put themselves in the groups the way they want to be. So if they've created groups, they know who they want to work with, now they can sign themselves up. So that's one object, or one option. If I do that, I can also say that my students have to be in the same section of the course in order to work together in a group. So if I have a cross-listed course or a combined course shell, and I have multiple sections in that shell, I can allow my students either to work across sections or restrict them to working with other students in their own section, depending upon my specific needs. I can automatically say how many groups I want to create. I'm going to get rid of this. Whoops. I can, I can create my group manually, which is what I typically do, because I want to have consensus of who's working with whom. And then when I create my groups manually, I'll go through the process that I just showed you. I'll create a new group, I'll add additional to it, I'll create another new group, and so forth. Or I can ask the system just create 6 groups and split everybody up automatically. So let's do that just for fun. And let's split people into 7 groups. We hope. The group leader functionality is something that Canvas is still working on. And at some point, right now we can assign a group leader, but that group leader doesn't really have much power. Right? It's just sort of a titular appointment. At some point, we hope that a group leader will have a little bit more ability to control the group. I think the group leader right now can actually change the group name. That's exciting. But I believe that that's still about the only thing that the group leader can do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save these groups. Canvas is going to automatically create the groups, we hope. What's going on here? Hello? Are you saved? Maybe. Oh, okay. Doesn't like my name. Try again. Okay, you're going to see that there's a new tab now, a new project group. It has 7 groups in it. And each of these groups is populated with folks who are in this course. So now each one of you in the course will have access to a group when I create an assignment or activity that's associated with that group. Okay. The next thing I need to do then is create for you. Actually, you probably have access to there. Oh, yeah, yeah. And there's nothing there. I love it. You have access to it already. If you want, you can just go ahead and jump into one of these groups. As the teacher, I can jump into any of them. So, for example, let's just go ahead and into collaborative classroom. They're all exactly the same right now because we haven't added anything to them. And I just clicked on the little gear next to the group name, and I can visit the group homepage. When your students and you ask students access or go into these groups, this is what you're going to see. Until somebody actually does something in the group, this is what you're going to see. One of the things that you'll notice, whoops, what did I just do? I didn't really want to do that. Okay, one of the things that you'll notice is, again, you have access. Within the group, you have a subset of tools. All of the students have access to all of these tools. And these tools are just shared among the group members. So if I want to post an announcement here, for example, then only the members of this group will see this announcement and the instructors. Okay? Nobody else will see this announcement. The same is true of discussions here. If I create a discussion here, this discussion is only going to live within this group area. Okay? The rest of the course discussions, all the discussions that I've created that are open to everybody in the course, none of those are visible in this group area. This can be a tiny bit confusing at first for students. That they work in a group and then they'll get dumped into a group automatically, and I'll show you how that happens in just a moment. And then they say, okay, I'm finished with this group discussion. Now I want to go back to, you know, another discussion that is open to the entire class, and they will not see it in this list of discussions until they actually exit the group area and go back into the main course. That's, I think, probably one of the most confusing things about groups and WyoCourses. People have questions? Yes, Linda.
Okay, so I go into
Mm-hmm.
one of my, actually their own shell. And I want to switch back to the main course.
Yes.
Now, I've been going up just courses in groups and just going in that way.
Yep. Yep, that works. There are a couple of different ways to do it. That way is easy and clean and elegant. Another way is right there. There's a link to the main course. Yeah, and this is something that's useful to tell your students, right? Once they get it, and there's no issue anymore. But it's useful. Now, there's another way to get into, or to get your students into a group area, and that's through a group assignment or discussion. So obviously, one of the things that's most useful about groups is that you can create group assignments where students collaborate and they then submit an assignment together as a group, right? Or a group discussion, which allows you to limit a discussion, particularly in a large class, to a subset of students. So the way that we do that is in the actual configuration of the assignment or the discussion when we create it. So for example, let's just create a quick discussion. Let's just create a new one. And I'm just going to call it collaborative discussion, collaborative classrooms. Okay. What did I do? I don't have the right glasses on. Okay. So we create this discussion the same way we create any assignment or discussion. You've all seen this multiple times. If you want me to slow down, holler. But this is sort of the basic stuff. When it gets important is right here. This is a group discussion. That's what's going to enable you to attach this group to a specific assignment or a specific discussion. So you notice that as soon as I clicked on that, here, let me unclick it. As soon as I clicked on that, then I got this group set option. I could have created my group set here if I wanted to, and created the groups right here if I wanted to. And sometimes I might do that if I'm going to create groups that are very specific to a discussion or assignment. But if I want those groups that maybe are going to persist, maybe I set those groups up in advance. And then I can attach the discussion or assignment to a group set that I've already created, okay? Now, what's going to happen is that every group in this group set is going to see the same discussion prompt, okay? I can't modify the prompt for the discussion here. So everybody's going to see the same discussion. So sometimes people come and they say, well, but I want to have a different discussion question for each group. And if you want to do that, you need to do it there are a couple of different ways, but they're kind of workarounds. So for example, maybe you would put all of the prompts, the discussion questions, in this prompt, in this discussion, and say group 1, discuss this question. Group 2, discuss this question, and so forth. Or maybe you'll say, when you get into your group, you'll see a discussion question posted there, like on a page, for example. And then, so there are advantages and disadvantages of either one of those approaches, right? The first approach, students have to figure out what group they're in and answer the right question. The second approach, they have to actually sort of leave the discussion for a moment to find their discussion question, and then come back to the discussion to discuss. You could ask a group leader when they get into the discussion to paste the question there. I mean, there are various ways, and there are lots of creative ways to get around that. But just know that every student is going to see this prompt. And I can't here change the prompt and make it specific or tailor it for specific groups. Okay? All right. So it's a group question, and I've associated it with the collaborative classrooms group set, and I'm going to say that it's graded and it has a certain number of points possible. So what will happen now is that I'm going to automatically create a column in my gradebook, and I can grade all of the participants' contributions in the gradebook. For discussions, I will grade each student individually, right? So each student's participation in the gradebook, each student gets graded separately. For assignments, I have the option of assigning everybody in a group the same grade. So you all collaborated, Jane and Tao and Mary all collaborated on an assignment. When they submit it, I don't know who submitted it. I just know that the group submitted it. And I have the option now of just saying they get 10 points. Or I have the option of saying I want to grade them individually. Okay? All right. I'm going to finish creating this discussion. It's going to go to everybody in the class. I'm not going to bother with any of the rest of this stuff. Now, I've saved and published it, but it won't be visible. Whoops, back up. So now when I go into this, take a look at this discussion in my course shell, I'm going to see links to each group discussion, okay? So what this is telling me is two things. One is, I know this is a group discussion. I know that there are this many groups, and I can access the discussion right from here for each group. So I can just jump right into a group discussion area. So for example, okay. So I'm Phineas. I forgot I was Phineas. If the students in discussion group 7 had begun to participate in this discussion, I would be able to see what they were doing here. Okay? Tao, did you have a question? Yeah, okay. Okay. Now, nobody has begun to participate in this discussion because I haven't added the discussion to a module to make it visible to my students. So I'm going to go back into a module. Let's make it this one, since it's relevant to this session, and add the discussion. This should be familiar to people. Okay. Now, if you refresh your view in the course, you should be able to see this discussion under the module. Let's take a couple of minutes, see if you can see it. Actually post something so we can see what it looks like when people start to participate. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I could just randomly jump into one of these discussions, one of these groups, but somebody tell me what group you're in. Somebody who's posted. Number 1? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going back into my discussion prompt. Actually, this is nice. I think this is a new feature and I hadn't seen it before. Now I can actually see that there are new posts that I haven't read in each of these groups. That's a new feature, I think. Pretty cool. So there are 2 posts in discussion group 1 that I need to read and potentially grade. So this is what it's going to look like. Just like any other discussion, except that it's limited to just those people in the group. And nobody else in the class is going to be able to see this discussion, okay? Except for me, or the instructors. But none of the other students are going to be able to see this discussion. This gets to be important when you think, okay, now I want my students to share with the rest of the class, right? They can't do that here. That's not possible. So now, if you want your students to be able to share with the rest of the class, you need to create a place for them to do that. So for example, maybe you'll create a new discussion that's not a group discussion, that's open to everybody in the class, and have the group leaders from each of the groups post a summary of their discussion where everybody can see it. Okay? Does that make sense? So one of the strengths of discussions, the fact that they're really well insulated, also means that there's no cross-populating between them. You can't cross-populate between discussions. You can't share across discussions without creating another space to do it, okay? You can't change group membership once a set of groups has been created and students have begun working, right? You can't say, oh my gosh, I have the wrong person in this group, I'm just gonna move him. You can't, it doesn't work. You have to create a new group set in order to do that, okay? The last thing I wanna say about groups from, yeah, I'm sorry. That means I haven't read them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it means I have read them. I guess this depending upon how your account is set up, it may be set up to automatically mark your discussions posts as either read. It's not choosing it. No, it just means that. So remember when I first got into the discussion page, I saw all those. You know, you've got this many discussions, some of and so many read. That's all it means. Yep. So now if I go back to the main discussion page for this discussion and look at that, where am I? Discussion prompt. I should see that, no, I'm lying. I don't know why. Yes, so there are 6 replies and 3 of them have been read. So the other 3, I obviously didn't scroll down far enough to, so there they are. So the system was telling me they were blue, and that was telling me they hadn't been read yet. And once I read them, or in this case, just displayed them, yep, yes. Uh-huh. That's right, because this is group 1's discussion. Exactly. Yep. And so that's a great illustration of discussions. You will only see group 3's discussion. Yep. Or the group that you're in. As a student, as an instructor, you can look at all the discussions, but as a student, and you're in this course as a student, yeah. I did. That's correct. Do you want to look at group 3, just to illustrate? Okay. Yep, this is just group 1. Yep. The other thing I just want to point out quickly, because Phineas is going to talk about discussions from a student perspective, which I think is really helpful, just that one of the limitations of WyoCourses that we hear about from time to time is that there's not a great place for students to put files. And so if you want students to be able to post files, they can do that in groups. So they can share files in groups, they can create their own pages, they can create their own discussions. If they create their own discussions in a group, those discussions will not be linked to the grade book. Right? Only the discussions that you create will be linked to the grade book. Discussions that you create in the main course shell. I think that's it. Questions? We could talk about groups for a long time, but I think those are the basics.
How do then students create files?
They don't create files. I mean, they create files however they create them, but they can post them, right? They post them exactly the same way you post them, except that they can only post them in their group areas. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Tal?
Yeah, I don't know how, if I were a student and I need to show them how to create or
How to
post a file.
I don't know how to do it. Right.
So they would go into the group area and click on files, and then they might, for example, search for a file, or upload a file. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when I'm the professor, it's set up a certain way, but let's say I wanted to know how it looks to the student to be able to set it up.
Absolutely. You use student view.
But then could I try and do what she just said and try and like set up something as a student so I know?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. You can do any, wait a minute. Not in groups. Not in groups. You can't as in a group. Yeah, that's right. Yes, absolutely. In the main course shell, you can do almost anything that any student can do.
Try to set it up.
Yes, but you can't participate in a group as a test student. And so unfortunately, that means that you can't see and interact in a group as a test student and see what the student sees. Now, if you really, really, really need to do that, we may be able to create a test student for you.
I was going to ask you. You know, because what they see and how they do it, what we do are two different
It's true.
things, so.
You're absolutely right. And that is a limitation that I don't know if Canvas is working on that or not, but that is a limitation. It's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, Tal.
One thing I was wondering, you said that once the groups are in certain groups,
Yes.
Then they can share within among the group members, share the items or whatever they create. But you said that we can, as an instructor, have them post something
Across groups.
How do you do that?
So if, for example, I have my students in group discussions, and then I wanted them to be able to share their discussions or summaries or whatever, the conclusions with the whole class, I would then have to create a new discussion in my main course shell that was not a group discussion, but it's open to everyone in the class.
Now that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's simply going on to another.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that comes up sometimes, for example, when people want, when faculty want their students to work on a collaborative assignment, but then they'd like students to be able to. Yeah.
So you had to set up completely different
Groups, right? So what I would do in that case, Jenny, is I would create a new assignment or a new discussion and I would do peer review for the whole class. We're not huge fans of the peer review tool, to be honest. It's confusing. We have found that we're not crazy about it. We're hoping that that's evolving. Yeah, and there are some workarounds for that, but as a rule, I mean, just as a good guideline, know that you can't cross-populate in groups. So if you want students to be able to work across groups, you have to create a new space for them to do that in. Okay? Are there other questions? I'm going to hand it off to Phineas to talk about groups from a student perspective.
If you start speaking, I'll give you none.
So I'm just going to give some brief notes from the field, if you will, from being a graduate student in WyoCourses, and maybe a little bit of a bird walk. I hope you'll indulge me. But my first semester in WyoCourses was really a challenge. One of the courses that I had, the instructor had essentially just copied over massive content from eCollege and dumped it in, and then done some work to realign it with the tools and the way that WyoCourses worked, but not enough. So we had multiple assignments in multiple places. We had group assignments, but actually the group functionality of WyoCourses wasn't used at all. And so we were kind of left on our own to try and figure out how to both navigate through the course and how to do our own group work. And so the second semester I was in, it was great. I had an instructor who used the full group functionality, and it was like night and day. But I guess for me, what that really brought home in kind of my different hats as a student and as a designer was how much we really need to focus on intentional course navigation, because that first course, the navigation was just horrible. And one of the reasons that it was, and again, this is my bird walk, was because all of these tools here were open and they were all visible to students all the time. And so even though I knew WyoCourses, I literally, every time I wanted to work on an assignment, I went in and I tried to find it each time. And there were multiple places where it was, and there were also even multiple sets of directions for the same assignment. So anyway, it was kind of a worst case scenario, but we really highly, for group work and for all work in general, make it as simple and as easy for the student to understand as possible. And the best way to do that is to only give them a few tools, and as we've done in this course right here, this bootcamp course, use the modules to organize everything so that there's really only one way, or at best maybe two ways, to get to the information that they need, to get to their group, to get to their discussion, or what have you. And you know, if you have all of these open all the time, just by the way that these tools are designed, it causes confusion. So just a little aside there. Another thing, as far as groups go, I don't think as a student it's initially obvious how separate they are, in the sense that Meg just talked about, that the group is really your own separate full-fledged course web page within WyoCourses, and it can be kind of confusing. Meg already showed us the navigation, but I'll just go in to one of my groups here. Oops. And yeah, this is one that I just created for this, but the two different ways to get back and forth as a student, obviously, are the breadcrumbs, and then this will take you back to the main course. In the second term that I had, when we used the full-fledged groups, it was great. I really think that for me, what it did was, in the past group assignments, a lot of the energy and the time were spent just sheerly trying to organize the people and trying to get them together on a document or in a specific place. Whereas with WyoCourses, it was really easy because we all knew where to go and we all had all of these tools. We weren't saying, oh, well, we can call or we can meet at a certain time. We could use collaborations. We can set up different, I'm sorry. Anyway, the couple letters are cut off here, but collaborations, we set up real-time collaborations, and then with Google Docs, then we also used a big blue button a few times. I found that most of the work that we did, though, was with collaborations in Google Docs. There were only a few times when we actually set up a full-on, video collaboration conference. It just was kind of too hard to get people together. As with all group work, I think probably most of the time is spent just trying to organize people and to get people to contribute. That's always the biggest challenge, no different in WyoCourses. I love the fact that by default, all of the members in a group have access and full access to do anything in all of the tools. So and this also ended up being kind of funny at the beginning of the group. But for instance, one of the tools that students can use in their group is the announcements tool. And so we were all very excited at the beginning of the semester, and just wanted to share all the different resources that we had with everyone. And one of the ways that people came up with doing that was adding external RSS feeds. And so 3 or 4 people in the group did that, and within the first day and a half, we were all getting just massively spammed by all these RSS feeds from the tool. So it, great thing, but also, kind of challenging. And again, as Meg said, I echo that I hope WyoCourses increases the group leader functionality so that maybe someone can go in and kind of try to control some parts of that. But anyway, that was kind of a fun little thing that happened. Pages, we used Pages quite a bit. The people tool is great within a group because it gives you just a quick visual idea of who's in there, and also of all the teachers and TAs in the course. You can go in and message them from the links right next to their name, which is really nice. The discussions, we definitely use the discussions within our group quite a bit. And files, as Meg said, we definitely use the files too, to just share files directly, because we don't really recommend using files at the course level. It was really nice as a student to be able to share files right here with the other people in our collaborative groups. One kind of neat thing that I discovered last semester, kind of in relation to some of the things that have been brought up about group work before, with the way that WyoCourses or Canvas is set up, information kind of flows down from the larger class into the group, but there's not really any way for information to flow directly back up. And one neat way that we found to get around that was, if we take a collaboration that you created, so you create a collaborative Google Doc, and your group is working on that Google Doc, what you can do, and I'll show this really briefly as well, but you can take and publish that doc to the web, and then grab the embed code, and then take that embed code and drop it into a page in the larger course in Canvas, or into a discussion in the larger course in Canvas, so that anyone in the course can then go in and actually at any time have a real-time visual of what is happening in your collaboration, and importantly, without the ability to edit it, of course. So you're just giving them this live view of the page in the course, but of course no one else has edit rights besides the people within the group. So it was really one of the most powerful workarounds that I've found to get that information flow going back up from the closed kind of inclusive group nature back to the real course. So we already kind of belabored Google Docs earlier, but I'm going to jump out. Looks like none of my stuff is up here, so I'm going to jump back out into our regular Bootcamp course. And I'm going to go into the collaborations again, and I'm just going to show you guys how to do it, grab that embed code from that collaboration. So just imagine, if you will, that this collaboration is actually just within a group. This isn't, it's actually for the whole course, but imagine that it's just for a group. And then I'll go to File, and I'll go to Publish to the Web, and I want to do embed code, and I already published it, so that is grayed out. I could stop publishing, and I can, there are different detailed settings, but I'll just go ahead and grab this embed code. And then I'm going to go back out to the overall course, and I'm just going to take and put it into a page. And because of our intentional course navigation, I'll then have to put that page in the module. So I'll see if I can remember to do everything that I'm talking about here. But I'm going to go to View All Pages and hit New Page. And I'm going to call this and I'm going to click, the important part here is to click on this HTML editor link right here. I don't know how many of you have used this, but it's really pretty quick and easy. You click on the HTML editor pane, and then you paste the embed code in, and then I'll go back, and before saving it, and this is kind of the important step here, before saving it, I'm going to click back on that link. Now it says Rich Content Editor. I'm going to go back to where I started, and if I just saved it to begin with, the document would be like 6 or 7 words wide, and who knows how long. So what I'm going to do, Canvas thankfully makes this really easy. So I'm just going to click on the document and I'm going to drag it out. And I'll just drag it out, like say, all the way here. And then I'm going to hit save. I'll hit save and publish. Thank you, Canvas, for that new feature. And so now we have a page with that live Google Doc. And hopefully it would have more in it than just this. But when anyone comes and visits this page, they'll see the real-time, most current version of that. So I think that's a really powerful way to bring something from group work and display it to the rest of the class. But, you know, yes? Most definitely I do. Thank you for reminding me. That's the last step here. So it's published, but you all won't be able to see it. So what I'll do is I'll go to modules. And to make it somewhat make sense, I'll just add it in to our new one and I'll put it right underneath my documents here. So I'll hit plus, and then I'll go down and content page, and that's going to give me the list. And thankfully, the newest one is on the top. And I actually will indent it maybe one level, add item, and it's going to be all the way down at the bottom. And I'm just going to take and click and drag that all the way up there. So now we have, now all of you can see it as well. Which part?
This part was she asked the question, how to post it on and creating on the mod.
Oh yeah, sure, definitely. So Canvas is great. I love it. And one of the best things about it, I think, is that when you're creating a module and you want to add new content in it, you can add basically anything you've created, or you can also create brand new content on the fly. So say this is I'm adding a content page, but I could also add an assignment, I could add a quiz, a file, discussion, external URL. I could add any of these things into this module right now. But for right now, it's going to be a content page. And if I wanted to add a brand new content page, I could click on that. But for right now, I just want to select the Google Docs embed one that I selected before. And the indentation, that's just for you to organize it if you want to organize the way that it looks visually, the different levels of your module. Then I'm going to hit add item, and this might actually give me another one. Yeah, it did. So that gave me a new one right here, and I think I want to get rid of that. So I don't know if I can get rid of it right there. I'm just going to unpublish it for now so that it won't distract anyone. But any other questions about my brief student notes from the field? Yes. Mm-hmm. When you have the choice when you're uploading the file.
So you can choose different things for any group to see versus entire course.
Yeah, that's a nice functionality, I think, because that way you only have to make that choice once if you wanted the file to be available to everyone. And I guess that brings up kind of an interesting issue, though. Then we would have to be using the files tool actively on the whole course level, which you know, you can or don't. It's your choice, but we don't usually recommend it, just because we found that it's confusing both to instructors and students. So, you know, if someone uploaded that file within their group and they chose to make it available to everyone, it still wouldn't be available to everyone because of this intentional course navigation that we have set up here. So, for instance, we'll go back out to home, and we don't have the files tool is hidden, and so, you know, that I'm just saying that it wouldn't necessarily work in this usage case, I guess, but that's a great point. Thank you. Yeah. So if you
wanted to keep it hidden, how would you do that?
Well, if you, I guess you just have to decide as an instructor whether or not you want to use the files tool or not. And if you do, then just unhide it. And that way students can go and upload files to the files tool, and it'll be essentially visible to anyone depending on their user their settings that they choose when they upload it. But exactly. Yes, Meg. You know, I don't know. I thought that they could, but You can at all, even if you use it? Oh, okay. Oh, well then
I
that's,
don't think so. So only place
It's within groups.
Wow, unless it's changed, fine.
yeah,
It seems to change, but, last time, in their own,
oh, okay, okay.
or in a discussion, if you allow them
To attach files.
Yeah.
Well, I use the files tool so little
Yeah.
that I don't even know. Thank you, Meg. Yeah.
For example, I could be the go into that student mode, trying to set load file like student work.
I don't believe so, unless that's changed, and, one of the fabulous and frustrating, I mean, it's way more positive than negative, but I think they're very dynamic, they're constantly, sometimes we get a lot of announcements about their campuses. Sometimes we get, we miss something, and we'll be, as I was today, in workshop, and go, oh, look, that's new. That could be changing, but to date, I haven't seen it.
Any other questions on groups? Yes?
I'm just curious on the files. I use that pretty extensively for posting notes for the class, and as long as the students know, okay, I've got a folder in there so they don't see every file, they go, okay, lecture notes are in this folder. That seems to work pretty well for me, but you guys recommend modules instead of lecture notes?
Yeah, I guess it's taking that specific piece of information and connecting it to some place in the narrative flow of your instruction, I guess is what we're kind of advocating for. But if it works for you, great, do it. There's no problem. But it's just, leading your students through things really specifically is one way of teaching online. All right, well, I guess that's all I've got. We have oh, yes?
Some files, they need more than one module. If they're working overtime, I mean, over a period of time on something. And it's confusing sometimes for them to remember, now, where did I see that? Which module was it in? I tried creating a common module at the beginning where.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That they need overtime. Is there some way to cross-reference things? Like if you have it in module 6 because that's where you introduced it, but they're going to need it for some more module. Can you somehow?
Oh, well, you can always just link it again. That's what I would recommend. I would recommend maybe making a repository type module like you're saying, and also just put it in again. You can create as many links to that same file as you want from the side menu with the little tabs on it. Yeah. Just,
If you're giving them some instruction so that they know that they're going to need access to that file, probably pay how to create instruction, just links to the file right there. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Well, right, but if you're providing additional instruction, so maybe you're providing instruction in module 6 and then module 8 you're sending out, remember you're going to need access to this file. And you can do it. So you can link within pages, or you can just link it right in module as we've done. A couple of different examples.
Oh, whoops. Not what I wanted to do. Okay, well, that's all I've got. I'm not the next Christy or.
All right. Just gonna do one more little section here, and then we're gonna give you lunch.
Always a good thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mind maps, and I have a couple of expert mind map people in here. I know Carolyn and Neely are both in here, and they taught a class a really interesting class, and they did a whole presentation on it for one of our boot camps earlier this spring, and we actually recorded that. So if you're really interested in mind maps and you want to know how you might want to use it in the classroom, and I should turn this back on. Turn that back on. All right. Then you want to talk to Carolyn and Neely. Raise your hand, guys, so they know who you are. Oh, Neely's not here. I thought I saw. Okay, just Carolyn. Carolyn is your woman today. Sorry. I thought I saw Neely earlier. So they did some fabulous things with 2 classes. One was a grad class, one was an undergrad class. And they did this collaboration things, and they did some amazing stuff. So if you're interested in mind mapping, you'll want to talk to Carolyn today if you want to get an idea of how you might use it in a class. I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to do that. So first of all, mind mapping, as we know, are you familiar with what mind mapping is, kind of the idea of it? So the idea is it's a visual organizational strategy, essentially. And it was developed by somebody called Tony Buzan, I think it was. Not developed. I think it was probably, as many things are, people were using it for a long time, and then Tony, commercialized it or made it popular. But what it is basically is a way to present your ideas in a visual format. So I'm actually going to, well, actually, I think I have a link in this to a video. Let me just go there. That'd be way easier, I think. I'm going to show you a quick video about what it is, really quick here. Oh, no, let me activate OW Flash. Allow and remember. Not very loud. I'm trying. Nothing seems to want to.
Okay. Yeah, find a thing. Now, let's say you're planning MindMeister, a super intuitive app that uses mind mapping science to turn ideas into action. With MindMeister, you get an overview of the entire project, allowing you to focus on what's really important. So when you share your mind map, all collaborators can easily give their input and brainstorm together in real time. But MindMeister isn't just for planning projects. It's a great way to spark creativity, structure your thoughts, study and memorize, build presentations, and even to visualize and solve complex problems. So try our live demo today and see how MindMeister can bring your life into focus.
So that's a really quick little quick little thing on what it is, but basically it's just a visual way to organize information, right? So we use it a lot, or I use it a lot when I develop web pages, or sometimes when I develop courses, when I have ideas of what I want to do and I want to put them together. How did you use it, Carolyn?
So oh wow, thanks.
Sure. Yeah. I'll just stand here because I'm tethered to it.
I knew when I saw that on the list.
She's like, oh no.
Neely and I use it as a service learning project. We work with Megan Felheim to develop content for sexual violence prevention awareness, and so we broke them into different groups and help them develop different areas of awareness. And so we had our grad students and undergraduate students work together. It was a theories course on individuals in it was groups, communities, organizations, the theory class. And so how to use that information in order to provide the very best content to get out to the masses about sexual violence prevention. And so at first they were hesitant because, you know, when you middle of the spring semester, they like the only words they knew, are you insane? And so they were very anxious about it. But especially for our traditional age students, this is what they're learning, like in middle school, junior high sort of pieces. This is how they are learning how to write their papers. Like the majority of us probably would serve, I don't want to date anybody, but maybe like myself, we learned, oh, I just forgot, I just lost it. You know, where you had like Roman numeral 1.
Outlining.
Outlining, thank you. We all learned how to outline, and they're learning how to do this where they have the bubble in the middle and then they have their ideas grouped. And it was very easy. Once they actually hopped on and were using it, they were able to upload pictures, links to websites, videos, ideas. They could color code. There's lots of different ways. They can organize the information. They give you some formats you can start out with. They do have free levels that you can tap into that are quite unusable, what have you. We get a little bit of money. And so we're able to purchase the educational version for students, which wasn't very much. I think it was like $8 a student or something like that. But we were able to do that for them. It's a year's subscription. And then they can share it. They can either have it come out as a PDF, or you can share it. And so Neely and I had it so that you could get into what they were doing and see it. It does a nice little timeline across the bottom, so you can also see who.
I'm going to show you all that stuff. So.
And
yeah.
And so and what they're contributing and all those different aspects. It really was quite lovely, and because we did have administrator access and were able to get on, I wasn't lurking, but students were using it for other things also. Once they found out how useful it was, they started to do all sorts of gathering of information, organizing it in that fashion. So is that what you wanted?
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I really put her on the spot there. I just thought it'd be helpful to tell how she had used it a little bit. Because I'm going to show you how it's going to work. Yeah. Yes, very much like concept mapping. It's very similar, and you can use this tool allows you to do all of this stuff. And so it pretty much any way you want to design something. You can also think of it as flow charts. People create flow charts. This can create flow charts as well. It does a lot of tools. There's lots of tools online. There's ones that are more focused for K-12. There's more they're really young. There's ones that are focused for older. We use this one because I think it has some of the best sharing options that I've found when I first started looking at this, and it has the free option, which allows us to do stuff. And the sharing, I think, is a really important piece of this. It's helpful to use this on your own, but it's a lot more helpful to use it with other people. Even if you just sit in a room and use it, like I'm going to show you an example of one that looks like I created it, but we created it as a group as we sat in the room, and I was the only one typing, so that's why it looks like I created it. So you do not. Well, I mean, there's a free version. There is a free version. And you can do, as all free versions, you can do more with a paid version, but you can do a lot with the free version. So this is my MindMaster thing. So you can see these are all maps that I did. So basically, let me show you first one that is a map that we created. This is the one I told you that we created as a group, but it looks like I created it all. So this is just a quick example. It's not a very pretty one because it was a very functional thing. I wasn't trying to make it look pretty. I was trying to get information on the thing as fast as possible. But what you can see here is, and some of you will recognize this because some of you who are involved in this are in the room. What you see is I have the thing I talked about earlier with the badges. This is the project. Okay, so this is the project we're talking about. So it's called Teaching Instructional Excellence, and or TIE. And we wanted to be able to conceptualize what we wanted to do. So you can see that we went through and we said, okay, we want to have, I'm not sure what you meant by provide instructions, but have live hands-on sessions. Multiple badges can be acquired. To reach higher levels, you need to get back and provide something to the community. Online training, community, game-based design. These are all different things. These are the modules we want to create. So then you can see these are the things we want to create. Under backward designs, we have outcomes and objectives. You can kind of see how this works, right? So you can see how it kind of flows out. So on this, there's lots of ways to use these, as Carolyn pointed out, right? There's down here, there's a timeline. So if multiple people were using it, I'd very easily be able to see what they were doing. I'm going to actually highlight the topics because this is kind of fun. If I go back to a date, so this is the day we were doing most of it, but if I scroll back to here, you're going to see as it goes back the changes that were made. So you can see all the things that were added over this time. I can stop it at any point too, but this kind of shows you how stuff was put together. And you can see how it highlights and moves things and changes things. So like Google Docs, I have a revision history, so I can go back and see what people did. So as Carolyn was saying, she has multiple students working on it, right? And she can go back and she can see who changes what. On this one, I only changed stuff, even though there were a bunch of us in the room, but it could have been a lot of people. And you can go through this and do this kind of thing. I can revert. So if I'm like, somebody went and deleted everything, like we talked about with Google Docs, I can go back and revert to the version before that, and I can see where those things are. So I can do all of that in here. I can also, and let me just show you how you make one of these actually. Let's just make one from scratch. So I'm gonna, because they're really simple to make. So we're gonna say new mind map, and we'll just say, we're just gonna, see they have all kinds of setup ones. As Carolyn mentioned, they have all kinds of preset options here. I'm just gonna make a blank one because that shows you kind of the most stuff. So you go in, and you click on blank, and it says, well, this is my mind map. And we could say boot camp. And we don't want to do that right now. Go away. Go away. So this is our boot camp. And we want to say, for today, if I wanted to actually create a new one, I can hit the plus up here, or I can actually hit tab, I think it is, on the keyboard right there. And I can say for boot camp today, we're going to do Google Docs is one thing we did. If I hit a tab, it'll go to a smaller one below it, or I can say, okay, well, we'll just do that. We'll say Google Docs, and then we had mind maps But you can see that it's not exactly how I wanted that. Right now I have 2 topics, but they're not in the right place. This is really simple to change. I'm just going to drag it over here. So now they're back where they belong, right? If I want to create, I can make them pretty. I can put pictures in here. I can get, I can give smiley faces. I can add links. I can add notes. So I could go in here and I could add a note to this that says, we're going to use MindMeister. And I can add a link to this if I wanted. So I can put the URL for that in there. I can add attachment. So I can drag a file in there, audio, video, all kinds of stuff. I can also, this check mark is a new thing, which allows you to, MindMeister just came out with a new thing, which is a kind of project management thing, which I've been playing with Meg with on something, which is really fabulous, and we'll show at some point. I think it's really cool. You can actually add this MindMeister to your task list if you want to, and that's what that does. That's a new thing that I think just came out really, really recently. So you can do all of these things, and I can add more topics to this if I want. I can say under Google Docs, you want to talk about documents, and I want to talk about, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to talk about, well, we'll just move it. Spreadsheets, we'll just call it sheets. And then I can move that because I didn't want it there. I wanted it over here. And that kind of stuff, okay? And I can change colors, make it all look great. I can also download this. So if I decide I want to download this, I can download it in all kinds of different formats. So the free mind file, those are different versions of mind mapping that are computer based. And then I can also send it into Word or PowerPoint, or I can get an image of it. So I can share these in some kind of other format if I prefer. I could also, yeah, so I can do all that kind of stuff. And yes, Ginny.
Can you create kind of a legend if you want different types of elements put in here?
So that they're different shapes or different colors or whatever? Yeah, you can totally do that. If I choose, I can do that by just changing all the colors. And I can, if you use one of their templates, they have all kinds of pretty stuff that starts right away, which is nice too. But you can make it so that one level is a certain color. It kind of is doing that, or a different shape, or a different, you can do that. And it kind of does that automatically.
This color means this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't know if you can add just a random piece. You could, maybe, I don't know the answer. Maybe, yeah, go ahead, Lydia.
What you're showing is the basic free version?
The basic free version does this, yes. I actually have a not free version, but it does this. So, yeah, you can do all of this with free version. Everything I'm doing you can do with free version. Okay, now and then if I decide that I want to have something, I want to say, well, okay, it turns out this isn't true, but it turns out that I want documents to also link to mind maps. I can grab this little guy here, and I can make this link to other stuff. So I can make these arrows that link between ideas, so that I can say this, while this is 2 separate topics, they are connected by this idea. Okay. I clicked on one of these things, so I could click on documents, and then I grab this little up at the top here, this little guy, and then it starts, then I can point it back to whatever I want. Yeah.
Maybe you could do a legend by creating it in Word and then import it.
I suspect there's a way to do that, Jenny. I'm just not sure. Do you know? Have you done that at all? Can you just, you know what you could do is you could just make it a topic over here that's not attached to something probably.
Or you could, you could as a group decide that purple meant one thing and.
Yeah. You could just type it in the notes. Add a floating topic. Let's do that. So if you did this, you could say blue is topic 1, and you might be able to just do that because it's a floating one. So this is a by itself. So you could just probably just put this over here and say, and it's not attached to anything. So that probably works. Does that make sense?
And then you
Could have several of them, yeah. Yes. Yes. So, and the sharing, that might be, I'm not entirely positive if that's a paid version or not. But what you do is you go to your list and you click on this and you go to sharing. And then you can invite people. by email addresses, and you can decide whether they can edit or whatever, and then you just send the email out, and then they just go in and they use it. You can also make it so that anybody with the link can edit it. So if I can go in here and I can say, back here, I can say it's a shared one. Sorry, it's a shared one. And then I can say that anyone, I can invite people and say, is this the one I can do that on? Hang on, it's the other one. If I do public, then I can say it makes it a public, and it's instantly available and anybody can edit it. And if I go in here and I say shared map, then I can go in and I can create a link, and anyone who has the link can edit. So that's another way to do it. So they don't have to have a login. If you just want to do one, it's pretty easy. You don't care who, you're not caring about tracking people. You just say share that link. Yeah. Well, that link, which you'd send it to them, and you would say, you can go do this. If you want to embed it in your course, so she's asking if we wanted to embed it. So if I want to embed this map, let me just grab this. Here's the code, and so we'll just grab this code, and we'll go and say done, and we'll go back to our mind mapping resources. And scroll down. And I'm just going to do, you saw Phineas do this already. We go into the HTML editor, and I'm going to just add that code. There it is. Hit save. And so now we should be able to see there's that mind map in there. So it's embedded in the course that way.
So you could link this tool into an assignment?
You could, yeah. Let me see if there's any embedded. I don't know if you can edit it. Doesn't look like it. But you can look at it. And they would have to, I think they have to actually go to the, link that you sent to actually change it. Does that make sense? Not if you, so like Google Docs, okay, when we talked about Google Docs, you could either make it so that they had to log into Google Docs, right? And then you could track who was doing it, or you could just say anybody with a link can change it. And then they can change it, they don't have to have a login, but you can't track it. Same exact thing with this. I can make it so that anybody with a link can change it, but then you can't track who's changing it. It's just somebody changes it. Then they all have to have a, right. Then if you want to track it so that you can share it, I'm sorry, if you want to share it so that you can track it, then you would just have to send they'd have to create a MindMeister account and go into it. And Carolyn, do you remember what the limitations on the free version were? What couldn't you do? I can't remember.
I don't know.
You just had the money, so you just bought it and didn't worry about it. Yeah. There isn't, unless there's a limit on the free version. So when we're uncertain about that, I will find that information out for you guys. Yes, Casey. That's an excellent choice. I have no idea. Yeah, I've never tried it on MindMeister. Yeah. It looks like you can paste formatted text here, and it will. Yeah, it looks like it will. Yeah, so what he's asking is if I had an outline, like Carol was like, I learned how to do outline. If you had an outline and you wanted to turn it into a mind map, you could copy and paste it into here, and theoretically it would do that. I've not done that before, so I don't know what it's going to look like. But theoretically, right. Oh, and I was going to. Yes, exactly. You can do that. There's also, like I said, a whole bunch of preset ones, right? So they have preset ones that look good. So here's like a website planning one, and it's like a template. So it has, you start with some stuff if you needed to do something like that, right? So you start with some ideas of what you might want to do, web page design, So it's asking you for stuff that's, I mean, okay, that's not actually like the niche. Okay, that's not actually useful to me. So I can just get rid of this entire section. And it goes away. Yes, good, thank you. Thank you, Jack.
You're messing me up here because you have two.
You are, yes.
Yeah, you can have three after mine.
Okay.
Free version.
Free version.
So, because I'm attached to a couple of
Mine, now you can't make more.
I only have one more.
Okay.
And I want access to one content. For one map. So.
Do you have to access the ones that are in mine? You can't use it without.
So, I read all my own. I can access one of the two forms.
Okay. Okay. So you have a limitation on the number of mind maps, it sounds like, generally, yes.
Yeah, so since I'm attached to two, I can only have one, I can have one after.
Right.
So for students, unlimited, I can,
right.
They can access three.
Which is, I'm sure that's why you have your upgrade, because you have to have access to all the students.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now we know. Yes.
And the other is checking out the export feature.
Yes.
And on the free version.
That's different too.
You can only do the MindMeister format, or PDF, or a outline. So,
right.
You cannot do Microsoft Word.
Or the should have looked at that before. But you can still export it as a picture or a text. But you can't export it as a document. Which I did once and was a kind of a half disaster anyway, so I'm not sure that's helpful. But importing it to Word was not useful at all. So I'm not worried about that one too much. Yeah, so does anybody have any questions, more comments on this? So once again, this has, we chose really powerful and had a free version, which is limited, but there are lots of these. As a matter of fact, one of the export options, right, was go back to here, is FreeMind, and FreeMind is a open source, mind mapping software, or was the last time I looked. I should probably qualify that. Was the last time I looked, and so and it wasn't near as robust or pretty on the whole, but it worked. So there are other options if you do search for mind mapping software, you have options, and just look for the things that you want. If you want to be able to share with lots of people, make sure you do that. When we chose MindMeister, it was one of the few that's shared. The other thing with MindMeister that's awesome is it works real well on iPad as well. So I can actually just completely interact and create and work with it on iPad seamlessly. It has an app that's amazing. And so that was another consideration for us when we did it initially. But if you were trying to do a class that you wanted them each to have 5 maps, you're going to be, and you don't want to have, and you don't have money for it, then you better buy the tool. Any questions? Any ideas? These can be very powerful. Some of the things that, there's a lot of research on mind mapping generally, or concept mapping generally, that is really, it's a very effective way for students to organize information in their thought processes and things like that. So, and okay, all right. We've got lunch has arrived, so we'll have some lunch. We have some time over lunch, some good discussions. Eat lunch, have discussions, ask questions, think about what we've talked about, and bounce ideas off of people, and we'll move on to the afternoon after that. At 12:30 is actually when we will come back. So if you wanted to wander off somewhere, at 12:30 we have Rachel Watson coming in and talk about Instagram, because she did a pretty interesting thing with her class on Instagram. So we're going to have her talk about that a little bit.